What's going on, guys? It's Knight here, and today we're going to be going over the mid-season update notes for Smite. Now, I know I'm a little bit late to the game, but from now on I will be doing it the day the patch notes come out. Unsure of what time of the day, but I will be doing them hopefully the day or maybe the day after the patch notes come out. But to start off, this is a very long one, so buckle in, grab your cupcakes, popcorn, whatever you need, drinks. Let's get going. First, to start off, we have skins. Now, I'll be explaining how to get each one of them. Starting with, actually, the Power Up Hair skin. It's going to be available in the Sweet Victory Pass, the Battle Pass. This is the very first skin at level 1 or 5 or whenever it is that you get it. It's a very nice skin. I'll be going over all the voices after we go over all the skins. As for Funpocalypse Gibelonke is the skin at rank 20 in the Sweet Victory Battle Pass. And Sweetie Pie Soul then comes next at rank 40. It's a recolor of the Bubble Pop Soul skin. I forget exactly what it was called. I personally like the old one better, but that's just my own opinion. And then at rank 60, the huge reward being Sweet Justice Nemesis, a full candy-based Nemesis skin. It's actually quite flashy, and I really quite enjoy it. But unlike the other battle passes, if you tend to play a lot of Smite, and I mean a lot of Smite, then there is a Prestige Battle Pass. Once you complete the normal Battle Pass, get up to rank 60, get your Sweet Justice Nemesis, you can go through the whole Battle Pass again, and if you get to rank 60 again, there are rewards along the way, like more Battle Point boosters and chests and boosters and the percent boosters and whatnot. If you get to the end again, you get a recolor of Power Up Hair called Rematch Hair. Same difference, it's just a gold and purple rather than it's blue and purple, but it's something, a little bit extra for the people who play more often like myself. Then we have the Great Tengu Chronos. This is in the Great Tengu chest. It'll be listed down below once we get past the skins on when each of these chests and events are coming out to get the skins. I quite like it. It has a torquing fish as part of the ult. You just have to see it. Then we have Snow Strix Raw. I like it. I like the effects on it. But we kind of have a lot of raw skins already. So even though it's quite cool, I would have kind of preferred it on someone else, but it's a cool skin nonetheless. Then as a surprise, and that one's available week 8 of the Battle for Olympus. So not week 7, which is up next, but week 8. Then in the Battle Horn chest, this one's like really good. Infantry Sylvanas. This one's a nice surprise. It's a nice voice pack. Nice effects. I overall like it. It goes well with the Agni skin that's also like World War II related. Then for week number 8 again, so to pair with Snow Strix Raw, we have Molten Shogun Erlong Shen. It's more of a scary skin. It's a good clash against his current skins that are a little bit more goofy. I quite enjoy it. Then for week 7, so the next week coming up for the Battle for Olympus, we have Zappy Chibi Zeus. I mean, can you be mad at a Chibi skin? That's about all I have to say. And then to be paired with Zappy Chibi Zeus for week 7, we have Spirit Sun Hoyi, a little bit more evil, power hungry skin, but overall pretty good. Now I'm going to go over each of their voice packs real quick. These will be a little louder, so you might want to tone down the volume for a sec. But Sweet Pie Soul, okay, they don't have it plugged in, that's fine. Power Up Hair.
Oh, come on. You're not gonna back away now, are ya?
Okay. Funpocalypse Gibelonke.
Me? A mascot? If you keep saying that, I'll make you the mascot of the dead.
Sweet Justice Nemesis.
Do be careful. Too much sugar will kill you.
We have rematch hair, should sound the exact same.
Okay, I got another. Your mama is so fat, she counts as a pentakill.
Good voice line. Great Tengu
Victory
Kronos.
is but a small island surrounded by an ocean of blood.
A lot of people were saying, by the way, they wanted Tengu skins for different gods, but I'm fine with it being on Kronos. Then we have Snow Strix Raw.
Try not to get frostbite now, child.
Infantry Sylvanas.
I'll show you, or they call me the tank.
I love the voice pack, by the way. We have Molten Shogun
It's been
Erlongshen.
1,000 years since I've last set foot above ground. It still smells of fear and weakness.
Zappy Chibi Zeus.
Bow before me, puny god.
Probably the least interesting of the bunch. And then Spirit Sun Hoyi.
What good is all this power if there's nothing fun to do with it?
And as a note, we will be having skin showcase videos for each of these skins as they come out. So no worries about that. But speaking of when they come out, Sweet Victory Battle Pass is currently out right now as we speak. So is the Great Tengu chest, and it's out for 50 days. So you got plenty of time to like save up gems or get your paychecks or whatever to get it. July 30th, we have week 7 of the Battle for Olympus, which includes the Spirit Sun Hoyi and Zappy Chibi Zeus. We have the Battle-Worn chest on August 6th, including Infantry Sylvanas on the right. And then August 13th, we have Battle for Olympus 8, which will include Molten Shogun Erlongshen and Snow Strix Raw on the left. And they are subject to change in case, problems come up or whatever. Now, as a quick side note, all these gods have been added to AI matches and custom bots. I'll scroll down slowly so you can see who. Pause if you find anyone interesting. Also, for the Mixer store, finally the 3 skins got rotated. It's now Chef Specials Capri, the Lobster Butter one, Shao Claw Bastet, the Khajiit one, which is really good, might I add. And then Hoondat Bat, Hoonbats, the Tron skin for Hoonbots. Bug fixes. Now, a lot of these are very minor. Nothing that should really be that much noticeable, but I'll scroll through slowly in case you're interested. And now for God fixes. Combat dodge on Achilles is 3. Fixed an issue where the second fire of this ability was going on cooldown earlier than intended. Basically, sometimes you would dash, throw, hit a god, get the second one up, and then it would go on cooldown slightly earlier, so you'd be like mid-dash with the second part of it, and it would just cancel out itself, and you wouldn't get the throw. And it was rather annoying. It's a good thing it's fixed. Wheelix hot patch previous to this patch, fixed audio effects on the Power Surge skin for better gameplay clarity, cool. Bacchus fixed upper body sometimes remains stiff after using the chug ability, his 1. It was funny, but it's good that they're polishing the game. Kronos, decrease the percentage chance that Kronos will make a sound when firing this ability. And fix Heretic skin playing the default skin voice for intro abilities and death. Basically, every time he would throw a auto, it'd be ha, 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 ha. They just decreased the percent chance of him doing it because it was annoying as hell. Kukulin, they fixed his passive meter, calculating the 15% mana rather than the 20 because it's been changed for a while, but they somehow forgot to update the code. That's fine. It's technically a buff if you really want to be honest about it. Fixed miss sound of the fists closing on the royal start with Crimson Queen and the Mastery skins. Basically, it would be a dead silent ability, and it just distracting. and that's on her 1. Horus, on his 3, fixed the ability running out of time and snapping back in some edge cases. Basically in cases like where you would dash to someone and they'd finish their back and it would fly you all the way back to the fountain. Some of those edge cases where they could clear a distance and force you to fly really far, it would run out of time and snap you back to where you were. That's now been fixed. And his ult also updated the description to state that allies who are in the landing area also receive a shield. Did not know that was a thing. Good thing it's noted there. Hunbots, this was fixed in the hot patch, previous patch, updated multiple audio effects on the Howler Demon for better gameplay clarity. Cool. Giannis, on his 1 portal, fixed an issue where Giannis could be perma-silenced if Xingtian used his ultimate before entering a portal. Good, that's fixed. Fixed an issue where this ability could get out of bounds on the Joust map. Always good. King Arthur. Fixed Deathbringer skin using the Pendragon grunt sound when performing the Twin Cleave. Odd, but okay. Fixed sword not glowing based on its energy status when using high shader settings. That's good, so people using high shaders can now actually see the sword glow. Merlin, fixed in the previous patch, this is why he was removed for a patch. Fixed the issue where Blizzard could continually damage targets after they left the area. Good. And that's his 3 in ice stance. 2 in ice stance. Nox, her first ability, Shadow Lock, fixed an issue where the lock would stay on Ymir when he was casting his ultimate. I've actually experienced this. I'm pretty sure I even have a video out on the channel where this happens in it. Good, that's fixed. The Morgan, fix the VXG bird from T-posing if you perform any other VGS before the animation ends. Good. Kind of fine. But again, good they're polishing the game. Scylla, fix her Terror of the Deep Crush Projectile FX missing the emitter on low settings. That's good because some people do play on low settings and that would screw them over. Set. This was also the reason why Set was removed the previous patch. Fixed an issue where Sandstorm would continually damage targets after they left the area. On to Project Olympus. One sec. Sorry, something in my throat. Conquest added HUD minicap indicator to show which team has the Pyromance buff and how much time is remaining. Good. Battle Pass now has a prestige track. We already talked about all this. Console lobby chat. They now have a thing where, like, in the console lobby you can hit right stick or left stick in, and then you can say I'll pick jungle or you should pick assassin. Very basic stuff, but it helps out, especially with newer people in the game who might not understand the kind of thing you and your team are attempting. Chat window displays. You can read it if you want. Same thing with that. Friends list update. Add an invite to clan button for clan leaders. That's cool. Nintendo Switch now uses high-res names instead of gamer tags. Good. New rank split. The new rank split has begun. Season 4 players will undergo a soft reset, placing them in a specific division determined by their end of their split MMR, while also moving players' MMR values closer to average. For this split, we have reduced the intensity of MMR soft reset by half. Players should find their MMR values to be significantly closer to their end of split MMR when the new split begins. Basically, it was too hard before and you were like shoving Grandmasters back down into silver, where they would just pub stomp for like a few days, which would then make the silver players, appear worse than they actually were. So it's good that they've changed it. Reduce Conquest ranked queue times. Now this might be affecting us soon on the channel. Reduce queue times from 9 minutes to 7 minutes. That is good. They're gonna try and lower it further. But they found out that 7 minutes is probably the best for now. More bans in all ranked modes of Conquest, Joust, and Do. 2 new bans, 1 per team. In Conquest and Joust, it's in the first ban phase, and Duel, it's in the only ban phase. Quicker draft lobbies. So, when in the lobbies of all the game modes, Decrease the pick time from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. Decrease the ban time from 30 seconds to 15 seconds. Increased your bank time, though, to counteract this from 30 to 40. Now, this was basically because if people ran out the clock, which they normally did in like a competitive ranked match, the whole pick ban phase could go upwards of 10 minutes. This is now cut to a maximum of 7, if I recall Pon's what he said correctly, which is good. 3 minutes off means 3 more minutes of gameplay, 3 less minutes of sitting around bored out of your mind. But the increased bank time is so if you actually need to make a good decision, this gives you the time for it. On to items. The new Arthurian tree. Kicking off the mid-season balance, we would bring you a whole new tree of items. The Arthurian items tree is themed around Gem of Fate, which is crafted into a weapon of legend, powering the wielder at just the right moment. Each item has a powerful passive effect that activates when the holder finishes casting their ultimate. That's the key word, finish the cast, so when it goes on cooldown. It focuses on pushing classes that can wield it into specific playstyles. Given how difficult each god can work with these items, we are excited to see the level of experimentation that will come from the community around these items. And there were also some slight adjustments made to these items during the PTS. But that doesn't matter, we're talking about how they are now. Now, with these items, the best way to think about them is they have a passive that activates, a really strong passive that activates when you have finished casting your ult and it goes on cooldown. So, like, for example, Hera, who drops Argus, she won't get the effect of these items until Argus dies and the ult goes on cooldown. Makes sense? Anubis won't get these effects till after his ult finishes and goes on cooldown. Hope that's making sense. And for what they're attempting to do with these items, which I agree they've done a pretty good job, though some are stronger than others, is unlike the mask, where the masks were designed to shift a god in a class into a different class, so like shift a hunter to a guardian, shift a guardian to, a mage, etc. These are meant to make them better at what they already do. So make an assassin a better assassin, make a hunter a better hunter, a guardian a better guardian. And it's just more questionable on whether they're too meta currently and will need to be toned back, like the mask needed to be toned back. But to start off, Tier 1, Gem of Fate, costs 900, 10% cooldown reduction. This is a very smart cost decision. By making it 900, you cannot have a blessing alongside this if you choose to rush it. And they've designed it in such a way that even though 10% cooldown reduction is really good, this is a really bad, start of the game item. And will set you so severely far back. So you're at least gonna be doing these items as your third item, not your first or second, which is good. It's a good design choice. I like it. Tier 2, this is where it starts branching off. Honed Edge, which goes towards hunters, assassins, and warriors. Costs 1600, 10% cooldown reduction, 30 physical power. Good solid item. Apprentice Staff, which goes towards mages and guardians. Costs 1600, 10% cooldown reduction, 50 magical power. Again, decent. Knight Shield, which goes towards all classes. Costs 1600, 10% cooldown reduction, 25 physical protection, 25 magical protection. This is a very solid item, so is its upper part. Not the best, but certainly not the worst of these four. As for the Tier 3s, first one, this is built from Honed Edge. This is the hunter-only item, Fail Not. Fail Not is a bow of Tristan said to never miss. This item focuses on high power, high cooldown, and critical strike. While normally not a standard pairing, this item can bridge the gap for ability hunters while providing a heavy critical strike bonus to standard basic attack hunters. However, this is not the only selfish buff, as the critical strike chance bonus applies to your allies as well. We'll explain that in a sec. But this is a hunter-only item, costs 2800, 20% cooldown reduction, 45 physical power. It used to be 50, but they reduced it in the PTS. 25 critical strike chance. Passive. As you finish casting your ultimate ability, your next ability cast within 5 seconds that damages an enemy god marks them, increasing the chance that they will be critically struck by 15% for 10 seconds. This can only trigger once every 45 seconds. All of them can only trigger once every 45 seconds to prevent stats changers from abusing them. But, sorry, had a yawn there. To take note, this can affect any god after you use your ultimate ability. So say you're using it as Neath, you ult someone in the solo lane on the conquest map while you're in the duo lane, and then you hit their hunter in duo lane. It will affect only their hunter. It's whoever you hit with the ability after your ultimate ability. It doesn't matter who your ultimate ability hits, it just matters that your ultimate ability was cast before the next ability. As for what that means, that it's a critical strike debuff for the enemy for 10 seconds. And what that means is they are 15% more likely to be critted by any source for 10 seconds. This means, you. This means your warrior. This means, your guardian, Ymir could crit them. This means the jungle camps and minions in lane can crit them. This means the fire giant can crit them. This means the bull king can crit them. Anything has a 15% more likely chance to crit them, because more or less, say their critical strike chance is 0, that's the base, you're dropping it into the negatives, which means anything has a 15% chance against them. Of course, if you have more like Ularon or any hunter or warrior that builds crit or assassin, cool on them. But this also just allows for, the occasional Ymir mollywap where he hits you for 1500. Anyway, though, also this is arguably the second strongest of the 4 in the 30 entry. Erendite builds from Honed Edge. Erendite is the Sword of Lancelot. Assassins and warriors often engage in their ultimates to seek to continue pressure by attacking the backline. Erendite enables this playstyle, not only revealing the enemy in a large area, but granting bonus speed and damage for successfully chasing down the target. Warriors and assassins only. Cost 2600. 10% cooldown reduction. 55 physical power. So solid stats overall. Passive. After casting your ultimate ability, reveal all enemies within 120 feet of you. So more or less think double the range of a hunter's basic. While moving towards revealed targets, you gain 30% increased movement speed. When a revealed enemy takes damage from you for the first time, they take an additional 40 plus 30% of your physical power. Enemies are revealed for 8 seconds, can trigger once every 45 seconds. This is arguably the weakest of the bunch, but this is a very good cleanup item. So you throw your ultimate ability, You throw your ultimate ability, and it reveals all enemies within 120 feet of you. Of your character, not of the ultimate. So if you throw your ultimate a far distance, it's not going to be 120 feet of the ultimate, it's of you. And it reveals them to your whole team, so everyone can see these people, but only you get the movement speed buff, and the movement speed buff is only while you are going in the direction of a revealed target. So keep that in mind. And your first hit will do an additional 40 plus 30% of your physical power. So this is arguably better on people building power and pen, and less useful on, per se, a tank warrior who's not building a lot of power. And this is just a good cleanup item. You throw your ult, you hit 2 people, it kills one, the other one runs off into the jungle. You can see where they are, chase them down, and with that additional damage, finish them off. And again, it's arguably the weakest. Staff of Mirrodin builds off of Apprentice Staff. Staff of Mirrodin is to focus is the focus of the most powerful wizard. Using this focus, mages and guardians will be able to do the impossible, double cast a standard ability. Each god can use this in slightly different ways, from doubling down on damage to bring extra crowd control. Whatever they use, Staff of Mirrodin will help bring the magic. So this is mages and guardians only. Cost 3,000. It was up since the PTS. 10% cooldown reduction. 100 magical power. Passive. After casting your ultimate ability, your next ability that's on non-ultimate ability cast within the next 10 seconds will have no cooldown, but will only hit for 70% of its normal damage and heal for 70% of its normal healing. Can trigger once every 45 seconds. Sorry, a little congested. Do take note though that although it can cast an ability twice, this does not interrupt channeled abilities, so you can't do 2 channeled abilities at once. The first one has to end. So I'll use Anubis for example. His one, Locust Swarm, the first one has to end before you can cast the second one. Fair enough. He can double wrap like normal. You know, throw one, throw another. You could throw them at the same person, but it's diminishing returns. But, and this isn't listed here, but it's been very well shown through testing. Any tick abilities, so Bastet's Bleed on her whip, Anubis's Grasping Hands, Aphrodite's Kiss, any ability that deals tick damage will not stack. The moment you cast the second instance of that tick ability, all damage from the first one will cease to exist, even if the animation is still going. So you hit someone with Aphrodite Kiss twice, the damage from the first, or Aphrodite Birds twice, the damage from the first birds will stop. Hit someone with Bastet's Whip, it's mages and guardians, whoops. Hit someone with Anubis's Grasping Hands twice. The first one, although the animation's still there, the damage will stop. So that's something to take into note, but a lot of people can abuse this like hell. Au poish. Also, take note that although it has no cooldown, you still have to pay the mana cost. This isn't a 100% free ability, this is a free cooldown for the ability. And it only deals 70% normal damage and healing, so take this into account. And there is rumors of the 70% healing might be nerfed down a little bit more to stop people like hell from absolutely abusing it. But that's only rumors so far. Pridwen builds from the Night Shield. Pridwen is the shield of King Arthur. Pridwen is the only item available to all classes and encourages gods to be the front line for their team and get into the thick of combat. Scaling based on your god's protections, this item synergizes with heavy defensive builds. Sorry. And allows you to convert those defenses into a powerful offensive explosion. Again, available for all classes. Costs only 2,400 gold. It's the cheapest, and it's arguably... Oh, by the way, Staff of Mirrodin. 100% the best one. Then you have Fail Not, and like Pridwen can argue over second and third place. And then Erendite is the weakest. But back to Pridwen, which can arguably be the second best one, alongside Fail Not. Available for all classes. Costs 2,400 gold. 20% cooldown reduction. 40 physical and magical protections. Reduced down from 45 from the PTS. It's solid stats overall. Passive. After casting your ultimate ability, you gain a large shield equal to your protections as both protections for 5 seconds. When the shield breaks, either by timing out or being depleted, it explodes, dealing magical damage, take note, magical damage, equal up to 50% of the shield's health, and slowing targets for 25% for 3 seconds. Can only be triggered once every 45 seconds. So let's say you have 100 physical, 100 magical protections. That's a 200 health shield. When it is destroyed or times out, it will explode, dealing 100 magical damage, because that's half of the shield's health, and it will slow them for 25%. So clearly this is only good if you are building tanky. It's also not a good item to rush per se, unless you can use that slow by going into the thick of things often. Most of the time you want this like 4th, 5th item, after you build one of each of the protections, or at least 2 protection items. But you can get away with this if you could use that slow quite often. Next item. This is another new item separate from the Arthurian tree. This actually built off of silver breastplate in the height of the Nemean lion tree. Contagion. A major request from players has been a physical defense counterpart to Pestilence. After having access to a strong early defensive choice that limits sustain giving players, especially solo laners, a way to counter build during the laning phase, while also not feeling stuck to needing Pestilence to handle healing even if the enemy is not bringing much magical damage. Contagion should fit these situations nicely. You'll recognize these stats a lot. 2050 gold. 60 physical protections, 100 health, 250 mana, 15 MP5, aura, same as Pestilence. Enemy gods within 55 units have their healing reduced by 25%. This does not stack with Pestilence. First off, the item is cheaper than Pestilence because it's designed for solo lane, so all of its stats are weaker across the board, and it's a little bit more mana based than health based. In return, though, this is a very good counter when they have a lot of healing but a lot more physical damage. Or in solo lane, for example, this is good against like your Zhonghui, your Hell, etc. Now, this is not stacked with Pestilence in any way, whether it's on your character or on another character. So if I have both, I only get the aura from one. If me and Eric have one on one person, one on the other person, they will not combine when we're both in range. It will choose one or the other. Now, take note, just because I have Contagion and Eric has Pestilence, that just means that our anti-heal aura is bigger, So it gives a bigger range, but you would never build these two together in any situation whatsoever. Really good addition, by the way. Demonic Grip. I'm not, to make this video a little bit shorter, I'm not going to read through all their wording, because I do not, there's a lot. More or less, Demonic Grip is being nerfed in cost by 150 from 2150 to 2300 because they're trying to hit magical ADCs, which are seeing a large resurgence and kind of pushing hunters out of the conquest meta currently. So its price is being up by 150 gold. That's not that bad, honestly, but it was to put it on par with Executioner, who costs the same bit. Hasten Ring, it's been mollywopped. Hasten Ring is a very powerful effect, the haste effect, and therefore it's causing some gods to snowball too quickly, like Kronos, like Freya, though Freya is getting hit really hard anyway. They're turning it into more of a luxury item. It's going from 2300 to 2700, a 400 gold difference that severely pushes it out of the first, second, third item slot, unless you're desperate or far ahead. But they're upping the magical power by 20. This is still a huge nerf. Do not let the magical power increase fool you. Doom Orb. More or less, they're reducing the magical power per stack from 6 to 4, but upping the base damage of in return, it does the same exact amount of damage, just you have more of it up front. This was more of a late game buff, basically, because other items could do this really well. So they wanted it to have more damage up front to kind of separate it. Because come late game, you're not really killing all too many minions to get those stacks up and up. Although the movement speed is nice, having the power attached to it wasn't. Spear of Desolation. Passive increase from 1 second to 2 seconds. It's basically to give a little bit more love to Spear of Desolation and try and separate it so that more people will buy it rather than Spear of the Magus, especially gods that have no business buying Spear of the Magus. Ethereal Staff. We're coming to the section now where they're just buffing lesser bought items, whether they're good or not. They're buffing them to give a little bit more attention to them. Decrease cost by 100, increase the max health stolen from 5% to 6%. Good. This is still a decent item if you build it early on, like, say, your Tank Baron, Tank Mage, Offensive Guardian. It's a good item. You should look into building it more. Jade Emperor's Crown. Reduce cost from 2150 to 2100. Increase health from 100 to 150. I will agree with a lot of people. This is very negligible. This is a very small buff that basically, if you already built the item, cool, it's a slight buff. If you didn't already build the item, it's not going to suddenly make you build it. Though it does bring it back into the eyes of the players somewhat. Hasten Katana, getting a 200 gold nerf from 2300 to 2500. This is just to push the curve for gods, more assassins that could use this item really well, like your Kalis, your Bakasuras, even your Arachnes. This is to slow that power curve ever so slightly by about 2 minion waves, 1.5 minion waves, few camps. It's just to slow it ever so slightly, so you might need an extra back, or you won't come online just as quickly. And they're nerfing it because the hasten effect, again, very strong. And on the theme of nerfing Hasten Ring and Hasten Katana, they're trying to just nerf movement speed across the board. There's too much movement speed currently in Smite for no good reason, is what the reasoning is. So they're trying to nerf movement speed more or less across the entire board, both in this patch and in the coming patch they talked about in the dev notes, which I'll go over at a later point. Talaria Boots. Decrease physical power from 20 to 15. They want you to have the movement speed, but they want more of a nerf to its power. So more of a trade-off, more or less. Ninja Tabi. Increase its attack speed from 20 to 25%. Basically, if you're on the fence on whether to build Warrior Tabi or Ninja Tabi for a specific god, always build Ninja Tabi now if you're on the fence. If they still could use the power very well, use Warrior Tabi. If they could still use the attack speed really well, use Ninja Tabi. But if you were on the fence before, Ninja Tabi is the way to go now. Quinn Size. Increase attack speed from 15 to 20%. More or less, it didn't feel as rewarding before, and as a core item, it didn't feel as rewarding with its attack speed, so they're just giving a little nudge. As you'll notice, a lot of these items, especially as we get into Quinn Size, are to help out, and Ninja Tabi, to help bring hunters back into the meta while hitting mage ADC is also a little hard. So they're trying to rebalance that section of Conquest and just Smite in general. Wind Demon. Decrease its cost by 100. Cool. Not gonna be that noticeable, just ever so slight curve adjustment for power when it comes to building crit. You still don't want to build your Deathbringer first, or Rage if you're going for a lot of crit. This will still be like a 5th, 6th game item in your build. Ichabal. Decrease cost by 150. They're reverting the change. It was originally 2450. In a PTS, they changed it to 2600 because it was too strong. No one built it afterwards. Because A, it's not as strong as people realize, or people thought it was. But B, at 2600, it just doesn't fit into a hunter build that well. So this is a slight adjustment. They're kind of hoping they don't regret it. I would have preferred 2500, but this is fine. It'll definitely bring it more into the limelight, allow gods like, Honor and etc. to use it rather well. It's definitely going to spice things up. Hunters will be hitting a little bit harder. Runic Shield, extra 50 health from 150 to 200. Again, same as Jade Emperor. If you weren't building it already, you're not to suddenly be building it now. Gauntlet of Thieves, decrease costs from 2400 to 2350, increase base health from 275 to 300. Again, same reasoning as Runic Shield. Only this item was built more often than the other two, so it's a little surprised they're buffing it, but cool. Bulwark of Hope, decrease its cost by 100 from 2400 to 2300, increase health from 200 to 250. This is a more substantial buff, and we will probably see a little bit more Bulwark of Hope over like Genji's Guard if you're going for more a tanky approach rather than a cooldown approach. Talisman of Energy, passive duration increase from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. Talisman of Energy, this is more of a buff, as I jokingly put it, to allow you to remember this item exists. This item's actually decent. It's on the bottom end of decent to like kind of okay. But this item is not to be slept on. If per se you had a let's go in joust terms, because this is a little harder to push in Conquest just because other items overtop it unless you're going for... This is a really good early aggression item. You build it as quick as possible, and say in Joust you have like, I don't know, a Ymir, a Hunter, and an Uleron. This would allow them to push out the numbers really hard, really fast. Super huge push. Whereas in Conquest, although this is a really good strategy, early push in the dual lane is very risky in Conquest, where in Joust it's very more accepted and actually happens a lot more. So I would say it's a good buff to other modes, not really too much added to Conquest. Relic Dagger, this is built a lot in the SPL, nowhere else. Kind of pushing its note as well as buffing it, so there's actually more of a reason to build it than there already is. Increase relic cooldown reduction from 30 seconds to 40 seconds. Do not sleep on this item. If you can fit into a build, that extra 40 seconds off of like a Sanctuary to counter someone's ult on cooldown every single time, really good. Whew. Take a breather for a sec. Whew. Okay, gods, AMC. Again, I won't be reading all this extra stuff, but I will be quickly explaining what exactly the changes are. Let me move my cursor over here. More or less, AMC's been dominating as a hunter who can flex into duo and solo lane for Conquest, and his late game poke was... They claim his late game was annoying. So they're trying to nerf Bees his passive and Swarm his 2. This is bad. It's not exactly the fact that they're decreasing the damage. That's fine. But decreasing it to 5 is bad, because in Conquest that pushes him out of solo lane, because Warrior's Blessing will ignore 5 points of damage. I believe it's 5 points. It might be 4. But I'm pretty sure it's 5. 5 points of damage in every damage instance, which more or less means his passive won't be dealing damage against someone who has warriors, or will be dealing so little damage that it really doesn't matter if they're being dealt 1 damage per tick of it. So more or less pushes him out solo. In Joust, if you're facing an AMC, literally just build Warrior's Blessing. He has no passive at that point. Swarm, decrease the base damage from 60 scaling up to 280, 260, scaling up to 260, late game nerf. Oh, and decreased physical power scaling from 80 to 70. You should be leveling the honey first anyway, so this is only really late game AMC, and in which case you're either ahead at that point or you're behind and being stopped. Bad change, good change. Honor. They're trying to bring Honor a little bit further back, as well as some quality of life improvements. Shifting Sands, his 1. Increased damage buff from 4% scaling to 20 to 8% scaling to 20 with an increased range that you can push it out, like place it further away from you by 5 units from 65 to 70. Reason being, early game, especially since you don't level Shifting Sands first, 4% is a very... you can hardly feel it whatsoever, especially since you have like no power built at that point. You won't have any power for a while, so they're upping it to 8%, so it actually has somewhat of a meaning and somewhat of a feel early game. I like it. Impale is second. Reduce pre-fire time from 0.2 to 0.17 to better match its animation. You won't feel it honestly, but it'll match the animation now and not look clunky. Desert Fury, add a targeter while channeling the ability. This is a buff. It was a hard ability to hit. This will allow it to hit. Allow people to hit it more easily now. Apollo. He's been a god out of the meta in every game mode for a while now. Audacity, his passive. Each damaging ability now adds 2 stacks of Audacity for each enemy god hit. The moves, his third ability, still adds 1 stack of Audacity for hitting enemy minions. The moves, his third ability, increase duration of the buff and debuff from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. So your teammates become faster and the enemies are slowed for longer. One thing to note, because of this Audacity change, if you can land your ult fully all the way to the knock-up at the end, it fully stacks your passive now, which is really good. Ares. Do I think this is a good change? Yes. This is a really good change. AMC changes are bad. Honor changes, good. Apollo, good. Ares, Searing Flesh, his third ability. The ability will now deal magical damage equal to 5% max health per tick on non-boss minions only at all ranks. This is both in lane and in the jungle. Still only deals 3% to gods. Basically, makes Ares jungle a actual possible thing, as well as allows him to not be fully pressured out in level 1 in Conquest. Good change. Chuck. Turret decreased by 2 seconds, his spin, his second ability. Good. This is the big one. Stormcall, knock up on this ability now knocks enemy players straight up. So instead of the slam and they keep their momentum and they're pushed out in all directions, this will now cause them to go straight up, kills all their momentum, allows your team to collapse on them. Really good changes. Erlong Shen. Decrease base damage on his 1 spot weakness from 25 to 85 to 15 up to 75. It hurts his early level 1, level 2 pressure that he had as like a jungler. Good. Fafnir. Okay. Curse Strength, which is actually his 1, the hammer throw. Increase the width of the ability from 6 to 7, so a 20% increase. This is good for casuals. This is a good nerf for SPL play. They have a problem balancing this god due to he's really good in SPL, so they're nerfing this and they're buffing this. Of course, this is both in Dwarf and Dragon stance. Decrease attack speed buff from 15 to 35 to 10 to 30. Decrease damage bonus from 5 to 25 to 4 to 20. Good nerf. Basically, he had way too much push before. Again, good nerf for the SPL. Good buff for casuals. Freya. Freya got shafted, but she also deserved it because she had way too much presence in Conquest. Not as much in the other game modes, surprisingly, but had way too much presence in Conquest, especially in the early game. Aurora Blade, her second ability, decrease range base damage from 16 scaling to 60 to 1 scaling to 40. Increase range scaling from 10 to 15%. Heavy hit, and one YouTuber, a lot of YouTubers actually have said it best. This is not a 15 damage nerf because this one blast would go through the whole minion wave. This is a 90 damage nerf across the board for clearing wave. Basically, her level 1 up until you get to like level 3 and I've put a second point into it. This ability is garbage. You might not even consider leveling it first anymore. That's how bad it is. The God of Demonetization. I cannot say her name because it will get the video hit severely and not be put out. She's getting huge quality of life changes as well as a slight rework. It's really good. Funeral Rites. Increase range from 30 to 40 units. Good. It was a really short range to begin with. That's her passive. Second ability, Spirit Ball, can now refire the ability at any point. This includes when she is under crowd control effects or even while dead. Additionally, they remove the post-fire of the ability, so you can throw it and immediately explode in your face, per se, if a Loki ulted you and you wanted it to explode right there in front of you so he gets stunned. Now you can. More of the crowd control and while dead, though. Apparently you can do that with the ult, too. Didn't know that. Dispel Magic. Huge buff. Dispel Magic no longer provides a boost to magical protections. Instead provides a shield to her and nearby allies. This shield is applied within 40 units of her and the dispelled target. Think of the how this ability acts towards your teammates the same way that Baron's heal acts towards his teammates. If they're within a certain range of you, they get it. Shield health. 90 to 250 plus 40% increased potency per additional target hit. Capacity is 80% at 3 gods hit. Duration still the same. I think it was 3 seconds. Increase duration of silence from 1 all the way up to 2 to 1.5 up to 2.5, and the slow increase from 20 to 30%. Really good. The magical protections only mattered on herself if she was tanky, which she would never do, or if you had a guardian nearby, which normally didn't need them. So this is a good change. This will keep her alive longer, and this will help teammates. The same way, think of it as Baron's heal, but with a shield instead. The increase to the silence, really good because it was really short. Increase to the slow, all good. That's her 3, by the way. Circle of Protection, her ult. Increase the base healing from 80 to 160 to 110, scaling up to 190. Real good. Increase mitigations obtained from 15 to 20% to 25 at all ranks. Apparently people were complaining the mitigations were not enough. I personally think they were enough, but she could also use some love, so I'm fine with this. Merlin. Honestly, he should have been nerfed more, but I'll take it. Eclipse, his Arcane 1. Decreased magical power scaling on the initial hit from 60 to 55%. I think it should be down to 50. Decreased magical power scaling of the tick damage from 10%, scaling down to 8%. I think they should have hit the ability more, but I am fine with this. Blizzard, increased the time to deploy of this ability from 0.5 to 0.7. Basically, it deploys as fast as Anubis 3 now, which means you have a slight bit of time to actually dodge this. Good change. Elemental Mastery, increased cooldown from 28 scaling down to 20 to 32 scaling down to 20. Bad change. I agree with some people on this that they should make this like 20 at all ranks and just nerf all of his abilities across the board. So although he would be dealing less damage, he could switch through them like super rapidly, or even drop it down to like 10 seconds and nerf them all severely. But I understand the reasoning that they need to hit it. It just sucks that they did. Nemesis. This is our 3 here. Shield. Increased damage reflect from 30 to scaling up to 50 to 50 at all ranks. Increased healing from 80 to 100. Now is 100 at all ranks. Basically, weird math. Didn't make sense. They've increased it. Shield's now really good. And now you don't have to worry about leveling it per se second. Although you should still level it second. Asia. They hit him hard, and they're still hitting him. Universal Ring Toss. Increased damage reduction on subsequent hits from 25 to 35, so when it's bouncing onto you a second time or more, it will now deal 35% less damage. Less damage, not more. Decrease slow from 25 to 12.5, but increase the stack. It can stack up to 2 times, so it can still go to 25 if it bounces to you more than once, but it deals less damage per bout. Basically, it was a very hard-hitting slow. It pushes him out of the support role even more. Stop building him in support. Nike, huge change to her whole kit. Passive gets, I'll just go over it with you. Passive, severely nerfed. Bonus power decrease from 4 to 8 to 1 to 3. Bonus movement speed decrease from 2 to 6 to 1 to 2. They nerfed this because it's the strongest passive in the game, and I think it was 17% of her victories, 17% of her victories were solely because of her passive alone. She basically gives a patch notes buff, as Ajax said, to all the enemy gods on her team once this gets rolling. It's wild. But they're nerfing this because she had a very high % win chance, partially because of this, so they can buff the rest of the kit. Ren now always hits 3 times. It'll always still do the D-spell on the 3rd hit. And the more damage on the 2nd and 3rd hit. Really good change. Plan of action no longer exists. It's now a barrier formation, if I got its name right. She conjures a protective barrier in front of her that blocks all ranged basic attacks. While channeling the barrier, Nike's movement and rotation are limited. So she moves a lot slower, and the rotation, you can't just hyper spin it like a shake and bake. It's really slow rotations. Enemies who get near the barrier are damaged and knocked back. At any point, Nike can refire the ability to collapse the barrier and deal damage to enemies on a larger area in front of her. Channels for up to 6 seconds. She moves 50% slower and can refire it, or it'll deal the damage at the end of the ability. The refire damage is 65 to 285 with 50% of the magical power. Every time someone runs into the shield, it does 10 scaling up to 30 with 5% of their physical power per hit, plus a knockback effect. Cooldown 15%, 15 seconds at all rank, cost 60 to 80. One thing to note is this blocks all. It does go a little bit in front of her, so you can't do this if they're hugging you, because it'll place the shield behind them. You don't want that. Anyone who's coming at you, you do this, and you could push up with teammates, etc. It blocks all range basics, and you're oh, it doesn't block, melees. Yeah, it does, because they can't walk through it. It'll bounce them back. Now, take note, if they are not CC immune during a dash, this will knock them back. So think a Thoth's dash. I once tried to push forward and then do the quick dash through your wall super far back past the enemy. She put up the shield and bounced me off of it, so I ended up dead center of all 3 of them in joust, and they just piled on me. Any dash that is not CC immune is affected by this shield if it tries to go through it. I'm gonna leave it there. It's a really good rework. I like it. Valiant Leap now always travels at a faster speed. It's not as fast as it was when you used Plan of Action on it, but it's a lot faster and you can notice it. Sentinel of Zeus, her ultimate. The ability no longer goes on cooldown if she dies during the warm-up, and the shield is gained immediately. Both good quality of life changes. Increase the shield's health amount from 20 to 40 now to 30 to 50. Take note, the shield's health does not increase because there is no longer a Plan of Action. So it's buffed across the board, but it can only go up to 50% now, not the 60%. She's really good with the Pridwin shield item and the Arthurian tree, because when you cast the ult at max rank, plus the shield from that, she gets like 75% of her health as a shield if you're building her right. And it's wild. Odin. Odin's been suffering a lot. They've decreased his Raven Shout from 15 seconds to 15, scaling down to 11. It now matches the scale down coolings of the jump. So now you can bird bomb as often as one or the other is up, because both should be up at the same time now. Ullarat. Best way to describe this is they fixed a bug where the damage fall off was not working. So the ability should hit less hard overall anyway. They've increased the magical scaling per shot from 10 to 15, so a slight buff. Hitting the same enemy with each slot now deals 20% less damage per shot instead of 10, so you deal less per hit of the ability. Decrease the minimum damage each shot can do from 20% total to 10% total. This will cause shots this will cause shots more quickly to decay in damage, lowering the lowest damage they can deal. So, and the projectiles will now start randomizing hit location on the second one, increased from the fifth. So more or less, the ability hits harder up front, decreases quicker in damage, and the shots become randomized after the first one, which hits dead center guaranteed. Good changes. Very good changes, because if you locked down someone and you had this fully stacked, they were just dead. Good changes. Rama. His ult, Astral Barrage, shifted the damage from the successive shots does from 50 to 75, 100% to 70, 85, 100%. Reduce the damage from each one, scaling from 200 to 600 with 60%. Physical power scaling to 180 to 540 plus 55% of your physical power scaling. This keeps the damage of all three shots very close. It's like slightly weaker, but take note you're also hitting harder with the first two shots, which are normally the two that you will hit. More or less, if you hit one or two, this is a buff. If you hit the third one also as often, this does about the same amount of damage. Good change though. Scotty. Oh boy, the only change where I think it was a way too much. Calder. If Calder's at 0 HP, Sky gains 10% increased physical power. That's crazy. And the health regen is 7 seconds now to 5 seconds, which will counteract this not being up as often. Which, this is also technically a buff though, so it's like, take it with a grain of salt. Her ult, reworked to it. It still does the same damage, same CC effects, but now she can choose a location where Calder to attack. If Calder is too far away, he will leap there. Upon reaching the location, the snowstorm will also surround Calder. The initial hit of the snowstorm roots enemies in the area, and Calder is restored to full health. This also works when he's at no HP, mind you. The storm persists for 4 seconds while dealing damage to enemies every 0.5 seconds. Same amount of damage, still does the root. You just yeet the dog now, a long distance. I personally think it's too much. Either increase the hit point regeneration or make this so it only works when Calder actually has HP. One or the other. Thor. This is a good change I like. Mjolnir's attunement fixed an issue where players hit at max range would take the initial hit but not the return hit. It will now do both hits at the max range. Good change. His 3, Berserker's Barrage. It's been reworked. He now spins the hammer around, dealing damage to enemies in front of him up to 3 times and those behind him up to 2. The final swing does extra damage. Thor is immune to knock up for the duration. I'll explain this after I go over the stats. Reduce cooldown from 11 seconds to 8 seconds so he can do it more often. Reduces mana cost from 65 to 85 to 55 to 75. Damage per hit change from 20 to 100 with 45% of your physical power to 30 to 110 with 40% of your physical power. Final damage swing, the third swing, 45 up to 125 with 60% of your physical power. Basically, he swings the hammer around him fully twice and then does like a cleave 180 hit in front of him, or maybe it's like closer to 140 degree hit in front of him, which is the third hit. The first 2 will deal the 30 to 110 with 40% of your physical power. The final hit, the cleave in front of him, will deal 45 to 125 with 60% of your physical power. Their reasoning for changing this is to allow it to fit smoother into the kit, shorten it, so it's not such a long channel up where you normally couldn't get out most of the damage anyway. It fits smoother in the kit, and just give it a little more oomph. So like, it deals more damage than Berserker's Barrage would do in the same amount of time, but is shorter overall, which means it just deals less damage overall. So if, say, this happens in a second, it's dealing more damage in that 1 second, but less damage overall because it's no longer the super long channeled ability. But it fits smoother in with like the basic combinations and everything. His ult, this is a interesting change. When he lands with his ultimate, his hammer Mjolnir is infused with lightning for 6 seconds. Now here's the important part. During this buff state, each of his basic attacks and abilities, excluding the stun, this it's not stated here, but excluding the stun, each of his abilities, so the ones that use the hammer, the throwing the hammer, or the spinning with the hammer, chain lightning to nearby enemy gods, only nearby enemy gods, damaging them on each hit. The initial hit is 20 to 60 with 15% physical power per chain lightning, and the chain is 10 to 30 with 7.5 of your physical power per chain lightning. So if the initial person you hit gets extra damage, but as it chains down the line, it'll deal less, and it cannot chain back to a god that was already hit by this. And it only chains to enemy gods, and it doesn't have that wide of a jump range, so they have to be grouped up. Good if the enemy is grouped together, though. Nice changes. Does not work with the 2, though, because it's not part of the hammer, but does work with the basics 1 and 3. Thoth, I like these changes. I actually really like the feeling of them in-game. Hieroglyphic Assault, his ones. Every time an enemy guy is hit by this ability, the ability's cooldown is reduced upon firing by 1 second. This can only proc once per ability fire, cannot proc on multiple gods. Basically, every time you hit one of the hieroglyphs fired out of the one of the 3 hieroglyphs on an enemy god, it will decrease its cooldown by 1. So if you hit 3 different enemy gods with each of the 3 projectiles, or hell, if you hit the same enemy god 3 times with each of the projectiles, that's 3 seconds off this ability. It allows you to fire it a whole lot more often, though you do have to be careful with mana. This does make the book build on him a lot more viable, though, because you want to be firing this a whole lot more often. Reduce damage per shot from 45 to 125 with 25%, scaling to 40 to 120 with 20%, so it hits a little bit less, but hitting an enemy with this ability increases the damage they take from each of the subsequent shots by 20%. So though it deals slightly less on the first hit, it will deal more and then even more on the second and third hit. really good changes. I like the cooldown more than the subsequent damage, but both are really good. Ravad. 10-hand Shadow Fist, his third ability. Decrease cooldown from 18 seconds to 16. Good change. Zeus, and Eric is happy with this one, though he thinks he needs more. I don't think he needs more. Added text to show duration of charges because it was never known before. Very good. Detonate charge, new component. After this ability is used, there is now a delay of 0.3 seconds before the enemy is hit with the damage. More or less, he does the truck pull for the detonate, and you see lightning gather around you for 0.3 seconds before the lightning strike, and it's a circle that slowly closes in on your character. Basically, you see that's the moment you cast your Sanctuary. It's basically a visual component, so you know when he's detonating you. And with that is the patch notes. Almost all good changes, minus like the Scotty buff. Margot's not hate me for saying that. The Sky buff is a little bit overpowered. Oh, and the AMC is way too hard of a nerf. Sky's a little bit too much of a buff. Otherwise, all the changes are really good. The skins are great. The changes to ranked. The new items are amazing. With that, I'm going to leave it off here. Hope you all enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please hit that like button down below and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to see more Xbox One or Smite content like this. This is Knight. Have yourself a good evening.